My name is Diego Felix, and my partner's name is Herman. Today we'll be discussing how I.A. Richards theorizes that meaning is made. Before we get into Richards' theory of how we come to make meaning, we will give a brief background on I.A. Richards. Based on class discussions and material from the book, we know that Richards' motivation for studying rhetoric stems from a desire to clear up misunderstandings in communication. We also know that Richards rejected traditional rhetoric that placed the focus on classic attempts at prescription, which basically meant do this, don't do that. He argued that this traditional rhetoric didn't make philosophic inquiry into how words work in discourse. Richards was also unwilling to narrow rhetoric to persuasion. He argued that persuasion is only one of the functions of rhetoric. In this revised rhetoric, he proposed rhetoric as a center of a new understanding, how words work or don't, as a central question in the order of knowledge. He also proclaimed that we master the fundamental laws of language to become effective rhetoricians. In Richards' revised rhetoric, he argues that we create our own theories of language and how language works. The best place to start if we are going to do that is in the word in of its own. We must understand a word and how it comes to make meaning. We must consider singular words as a unit of analysis. Doing so will help understand the entire sentence, thus reducing the possibilities of misunderstandings. Therefore, if language becomes the basis of what we do know or can know, rhetoric must hold a central place in order of knowledge. Singular words help create meaning. Meaning mediates thinking. In simpler terms, if you don't have the words, you don't have the ability to think. This goes for both intrapersonal communication, which occurs in our head, or interpersonal communication, which is how you engage others' thoughts. And because we don't always know what's going on in other people's heads, interpersonal communication can be quite tricky. Meaning mediates what you think of the world and also mediates how you engage other people in the world. How words come to have meaning. I.A. Richards attempts to clean up language so that we don't keep misunderstanding one another. Richards also states that people have an inability to communicate effectively with one another, written or oral. We must go to language to understand how persuasion works. So how does I.A. Richards theorize that meaning is made? Or in other words, how do we quote-unquote get meaning? First, you have a perception. So we open our eyes and see something that evokes feeling, which makes an engram, which is basically a memory trace in our mind. Those engrams then become part of a context, which is basically a cluster of relationships. We understand that the same things continually happen in a particular context, which then creates meaning. Sometimes those meanings become so embedded in our minds that we can see signs that will call up on those contexts for us. In essence, signs constantly point back to those contexts, thus reassuring our perceptions.
Not quite understanding how we come to get meaning? No need to worry, I'm an expert. With my expertise, I have provided an example that will help you better understand. For our example, we will use the material discussed in previous slides to bring all the information together. Let's all close our eyes for a minute and visualize ourselves at the worst possible place to be on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. Okay, let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. So we open our eyes to find ourselves standing in a room like this. According to I.A. Richards' theory, the first thing we will do is have a perception, which creates a memory trace, or an engram, which will then associate with a particular context. We will most likely label this room as a classroom, because there will be signs that remind us of instances when we have been there before. For example, a possible sign could be a podium where the professor stands, a projector where we will associate with note-taking, or perhaps something more obvious, like a pencil on the ground, or a book on the desk. All of these signs will point to the fact that this is indeed a classroom, thus reassuring us of our perceptions. Also, as a friendly reminder, yes, I indicated that the worst place to be on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. is indeed a classroom. Richards advised that we be sure we understand what was meant before we act on what we heard. The best possible way to remember these concepts is by remembering the acronym PECS, P-E-C-S. Yes, we mean PECS as in pectoral muscles, as in every Monday being National Chest Day in gyms worldwide. If you didn't know that was a thing, well now you know. PECS is a simple way to remember I.A. Richards' theory because it breaks down his main concepts and allows us to attach relatively new material to something we are already familiar with. Even for scrawny Johnny, who has never stepped foot in a gym in his life, he knows there is such thing as a gym. And now he knows that Monday is National Chest Day. He will remember that your pecs are the only important muscle of the body on that particular day. PECS will literally spell out I.A. Richards' theory of how we come to make meaning. P stands for perception, which makes an E engram in our mind. Those engrams then become part of C, context, and lastly, S, signs, will constantly point back to those contexts. Hope this helps. Good luck and happy studying.